Just a few days ago, everything seemed to be moving along as usual, busy with work, deadlines, and the daily grind of family life. Samantha, my wife, and I had our ups and downs, but nothing felt insurmountable. We had built a life together, filled with moments of joy and shared memories. Even though there was a nagging sense of discomfort I couldn't quite shake, I tried to convince myself it was just the pressure of daily life. But as time went on, the small arguments between Samantha and me grew in intensity. She began pulling away, acting erratic, and every time I tried to discuss it, she brushed me off with an air of dismissal. I knew something was wrong, but I never expected it to escalate like this. Now, here I was, sitting on the bedroom floor, feeling utterly defeated. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Just days ago, I could never have imagined myself in this position. The carpet that had once been a point of pride was now stained and ruined, a silent witness to all that had gone wrong. I closed my eyes and muttered to myself, "What am I doing? This isn't who I am." When I opened them again, I saw the bed in front of me, and for a fleeting moment, I imagined Samantha standing there. But deep down, I knew that vision was just a distant memory. It would never happen again. Everything around me felt like it was spiraling out of control. My hands trembled as I tried to regain some composure, but the weight of the situation was suffocating. My surroundings blurred, but I couldn't ignore the half-empty liquor bottle and the empty pill bottle resting on the bed. I hadn't even capped the bottle, I realized bitterly, the sharp scent of alcohol lingering in the air. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to find the letters I had written. They were on the bedside table, thankfully safe from the mess on the bed. What if someone finds them? I thought, but quickly shut down the thought. It wouldn't matter, I reasoned. I wouldn't be around to worry about it. Why did it have to end up like this? I whispered to myself, feeling a lump form in my throat. My daughter would hate me for this. She probably already did, after everything that happened last week. I can't handle this anymore. I whispered again, barely able to hear myself over the pounding in my head. The pain, both physical and emotional, still lingered, even as my life seemed to slip away. A week ago, I would have fought to hold on to life, but now, I felt utterly broken. Unwanted, despised, and alone. I could see no way out. The pain in my wrists had lessened a bit, but I still felt numb, adrift in a fog. As I sank into sleep, I expected something. Maybe a flash of memories, a light, or even total darkness. But there was nothing. Only the brutal realization that I had wanted to survive. But it was already too late. As the world around me faded, I felt the last bit of strength slip away. Just a week ago, I had been spinning Bella around our home in Perth, laughing together as we celebrated her engagement. At 19, she had just gotten engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Michael. "Dad, he proposed!" she had shouted, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I had known it was coming, and I was thrilled for them. Bella and Mike had been together since middle school, and I couldn't have asked for a better match for her. She eagerly told Samantha and me all about the proposal the next day. Mike sent me on a treasure hunt all over town and finally proposed under a tree in Kings Park, she said, her joy infectious. I gave her a big hug, spinning her around in happiness for her and Mike. Later, while we were in the kitchen, I reassured her that even though they were young, their love was real and strong. I admired the engagement ring on her finger, smiling. "It's beautiful, Gracie," I said with sincerity, turning to Mike. "You really picked a great one." Samantha, sitting nearby, let out a snort. At 42, she still looked stunning. Brown hair, brown eyes, and a sun-kissed complexion. Raising her wine glass, she added, "You should thank me. I helped Mike pick it out." Bella looked at her mom, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom, that was kind of inappropriate." Bella turned to Samantha and said, "It's okay, sweetie." Samantha, somewhat defensive, shot back, "I know you made the final choice." That moment made me uneasy. Over the past few months, Samantha had been acting off. Little things she said or did that weren't like her. The loving woman I knew was slipping away, and I didn't know why. We continued the celebration with a festive dinner, but I couldn't shake the unease Samantha's remark left me with. The next morning, Samantha and I woke up slowly, but as we started to get intimate, she suddenly pulled away and walked off to the bathroom. I was left stunned, trying to make sense of it. "Samantha," I called after her, confused. "What's going on?" From the bathroom, she responded curtly, "Is there anything for me?" A minute later, she added, "I'm already getting cleaned up." Confused and hurt, I took a shower, and when I came out, I found a note in the kitchen saying she was leaving for the day. Anger bubbled up inside me. In all the years we'd been together, Samantha had never been so disrespectful. I started to wonder, was she seeing someone else? I was still lost in my thoughts when my friend Henry called. "Hey, Bart, what's going on?" His cheerful tone didn't match my mood. "Nothing much," I replied, trying to mask the discomfort in my voice. "Something's off," Henry said, sensing it right away. I spent the next 10 minutes explaining Samantha's strange behavior, and Henry chuckled. "If she's cheating, there's not much you can do. Divorce is 50-50, and she's out of work. She'll take you to the cleaners." "That's not helpful," I snapped, frustration rising in me. "I'm just being realistic," Henry replied. "Let's talk tomorrow at work. We've got a report on the Hartman project due. We can discuss this afterward." "Sure," I agreed, though I wasn't feeling very enthusiastic. Henry and I worked together. I was the senior engineer, and he was the program manager. We made a solid team, each of us filling in the gaps for the other. Somehow I made it through Sunday. Samantha came home late, close to midnight, and didn't acknowledge me, even though she knew I was awake. The next day, she tried to act as if everything was fine. "It's not going to happen, Samantha," I said as I climbed out of bed. "You're saying no?" she asked, clearly caught off guard. I started getting dressed for work. "After the way you treated me last weekend, I can't do this. If you're cheating on me..." My words trailed off, uncertain how to finish the sentence. She sneered at me. "What are you going to do, Theodore?" "There's nothing you can do." Her voice softened but still carried a mocking tone. "Come on, just go back to bed. We both need this," she urged. I shook my head in disbelief. "Who are you? You can't treat me like this, Samantha. The contempt you're showing. It's unbelievable." "Well, screw you," she snapped, venom dripping from her words. I left the room, disgusted for the first time in 21 years of marriage. At work that morning, I was visibly shaken. My assistant, Luna, noticed right away. "Bart, are you okay? You don't seem yourself," she said, her concern clear in her voice. Luna had been my assistant for a decade. When she joined my team, she was recovering from an abusive relationship and showed up to her interview with a bruised eye. Yet, her qualifications were undeniable, intelligent, resourceful, and far more than just her outward beauty. Over the years, her unwavering integrity and calm competence earned my admiration and respect. Eventually, though reluctantly, I confided in Luna about the situation with Samantha. As I spoke, her expression darkened, and by the time I finished, she was visibly upset on my behalf. "I just don't know what to do, Luna. If Samantha's cheating on me, I didn't see it coming," I admitted, feeling the weight of defeat. In a rare gesture of comfort, Luna rested a hand on my shoulder. "First things first, we've got the Hartman meeting to handle. There are some issues with the pipes and concrete," she said, steering the conversation back to work. "What? Why didn't Henry bring this up?" I asked, already formulating a plan to address the problem. Before we could delve into it further, Henry appeared in my office doorway. "Hey, you ready for the meeting, buddy?" he asked with an easy grin. Keeping my voice low, I pressed him. "Henry, what's this about problems with the pipes and concrete?" He waved dismissively. "Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out." But the meeting was a complete disaster. The usually amicable Hartman owners were clearly displeased. As I ran through the project's progress, their expressions grew increasingly grim. Lucas, the CEO, interrupted me. "What can you tell us about the concrete and pipe cost overruns in the Northeast sector?" Caught off guard, I glanced at Henry, who merely shrugged. With all eyes on me, I answered, "I'll need to double-check. Last week's numbers showed we were still within budget." Lucas's frown deepened. "Then why have I signed off on over $200,000 in extra costs for materials over the last quarter?" I was stunned. Again, I turned to Henry, but his face revealed nothing. He suggested we step aside to discuss the issue privately. In an adjacent room, we were joined by our boss, Oliver. Before I could get a word in, Henry handed Oliver a folder. "As expected, they're questioning the missing materials," Henry said flatly. Oliver glared at me, his anger barely contained. "What's the story here, Theo?" he demanded in a voice laced with accusation. Reeling, I replied, "Sir, I've been under the impression that everything was on track. I never authorized any additional costs." Oliver opened the folder and thrust it toward me. "So, this is your defense?" he asked sharply. Completely bewildered, I struggled to respond. Henry, suddenly solemn, chimed in. "We've got requisitions totaling $26,000. The payments went into a bank account under your name. After everything, this is how you repay us." Oliver exploded, accusing me of fraud and implying I'd betrayed the company. HR was called in, and before I could defend myself, I was terminated on the spot. Oliver even threatened to involve the police. To make matters worse, Luna was let go as well, simply for being associated with me. As I collected my belongings, Henry's smug expression didn't escape my notice. Outside, I found Luna near her car, visibly distraught. "Luna, are you okay?" I asked gently. She turned on me, fury in her eyes. "You're a bastard, Theo. You embezzled $200,000 and cost me my job. I trusted you," she screamed. "It wasn't me, Luna." I tried to explain, desperate to make her understand. She cut me off. "I saw the papers, your signature, and that sob story about Samantha? Was that all a lie too? You've destroyed everything." For the first time in a decade, I saw pure rage in her face. She slapped me hard, calling me a liar and a thief, before speeding away. Stunned, I drove home, only to be met by Samantha. She sneered. "So, the cheating husband comes crawling back. Pathetic." In the days that followed, Samantha seemed oddly pleased with the chaos. My confusion grew, and I finally confronted her. "Samantha, what's going on? None of this adds up," I said, trying to make sense of it all. With a wicked smile, she replied, "It doesn't matter, Bart. I'm leaving you." Soon after, there was a knock at the door. A man handed me an envelope. "You've been served," he said curtly before walking away. I opened the divorce papers in disbelief. "Samantha, a divorce?" I whispered, the weight of everything crashing down. She laughed coldly. "Of course. I've been seeing someone else. Someone more interesting and successful. You've lost your job, your family, and soon your freedom. Sign the papers, Bart. I'm taking the house, the assets, everything. You've got nothing left." In shock, I barely managed, "So you're staying with him?" Her laughter cut through me. "Yes, and once you're locked up, we'll be renting out the place. Try anything, and I'll have you arrested." I sat in stunned silence. Samantha noticed the slap mark on my cheek and smirked cruelly. "At least Luna got fired too. Go crawl into a hole, Theo." With that, she left. For the next 2 days, I spiraled into despair. Luna's betrayal, Samantha's abandonment, and the accusations had destroyed my life. When my daughter Isabella finally answered my call, her voice was ice cold. "What do you want, Dad?" she asked. "Bella, please let me explain." I began, but she cut me off. "Stop. Mom told me everything. Your lies, your affair with your assistant. You've ruined so many lives. I want nothing to do with you." Her words shattered me. I tried to respond, but she interrupted again. "You're on the news, Dad. The police are after you. Don't come to the wedding. I'll find someone else to walk me down the aisle. You're dead to me." Her voice broke as she hung up, leaving me to collapse in tears. Days later, the police arrested me for fraud, bombarding me with questions. Though they released me on bail, I wasn't allowed to leave town before my court date. Back home, surrounded by remnants of a life that once brought me pride, I realized how thoroughly I'd been abandoned. My family, friends, career, everything was gone. Sitting at the table, I noticed a bottle of sleeping pills and alcohol. Dark thoughts surfaced, but I pushed them aside. I just needed time. The following morning, I was served a restraining order that prohibited me from contacting Samantha, Mike, or Henry and demanded that I vacate the house by Monday. It seemed strange that Henry was specifically mentioned. Suddenly, everything made sense. In a surge of anger, I sent him a furious text. "You jerk, this is all you're doing. I'm gonna track you down and ruin you." He never responded, but shortly after, the detectives returned to chastise me for breaching the restraining order. They showed no interest in hearing my side of the story. Their sole focus was getting me locked up. They instructed me to remain in the house and begin packing my belongings, all while a detective kept a close watch on me. Feeling utterly frustrated, I downed 3 shots of alcohol and decided to write angry notes to Samantha, Bella, and Luna. For Samantha, I penned, "I'm so disappointed in you. You're a deceitful whore, and I hope you suffer for what you've done to me." I filled the note with insults, spat on it, and then sealed it in an envelope. Next, I wrote to Bella, lacing the letter with curses before spitting on it and sealing it. "I'm deeply saddened and disappointed that you never questioned my innocence. I never cheated on your mother. She was the one who betrayed me. I never stole any money," I wrote. I urged her to see through the lies and mature. Then, I softened my message, encouraging her to fully love John and to remember me kindly once things settled down. I also requested that she avoid letting Henry walk her down the aisle, as he had proven untrustworthy. Tears blurred my vision as I sealed the envelope addressed to Luna. Starting with an apology, I wrote to Luna, "You're not to blame for any of this." I explained my belief that Henry had betrayed both of us and was likely involved with my wife. I apologized if my lingering looks had ever made her uncomfortable, assuring her they were merely a shy appreciation of her beauty. I asked for her forgiveness. Once I had sealed all the letters, I placed them on the bedside table and added a post-it note for the detectives. "Investigate Henry's finances if you want the truth. Next time, do your job and don't ruin an innocent man's life." I then took a bottle of alcohol and some sleeping pills into the bedroom. After leaving the letters on the table, I took a long, hot shower, drank more alcohol and swallowed the pills. Dressing neatly, I collapsed on the floor near the bathroom, gripping a straight razor as I contemplated ending it all. Thoughts of becoming unwanted and despised consumed me. Later, I discovered that Detective Ethan Caldwell had come to my rescue. He had been keeping an eye on the situation and, after a concerned neighbor alerted him, he entered the house to find me in dire need of assistance. An ambulance was called, and the house was declared a crime scene. I was in critical condition when they found me, barely conscious, and was swiftly taken to safety. The investigation uncovered 3 hidden cameras I had no knowledge of, along with the bottle of booze, the pill bottle, and the letters. I remained unconscious for 3 days. Upon waking, a nurse quietly informed me that I was in a private hospital in Hollywood. She pointed out Luna, who had stayed by my side despite everything. Seeing her, I softly called her name, waking her up. She immediately took my hand. "Bart, what were you thinking?" she demanded. Her voice gentle yet tinged with frustration, tears welling in her eyes. "I thought it would be better this way," I confessed, overwhelmed with shame. She let out a snort. "You really think ending your life is the solution? I've known you for over 10 years, and I've never seen you give up so easily. What were you thinking?" Luna continued to ask the same question, her voice steady as we sat in silence, only the hum of machines filling the room. Finally, I spoke up. "Luna, I'm so sorry. When Samantha, you, and Bella turned against me, I felt trapped. No one bothered to ask if I was guilty. I was simply condemned. My wife told me to die, my daughter disowned me, my friend betrayed me, and I hurt you. I wasn't thinking straight. I got drunk and, in a moment of weakness, did what seemed right at the time. I shouldn't be here. She nodded sadly and gently sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm sorry too, Bart," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I was angry and didn't consider that you might be innocent. I was wrong." "It's okay, Luna," I replied softly. "No, it's not. The fact that you're here makes me think I'm part of what drove you to this. I don't know if I can forgive myself," she said, her voice breaking as she began to cry. "It's okay, Luna," I repeated, closing my eyes in exhaustion. We sat in silence, her hand gripping mine until a doctor interrupted us, smiling as he reviewed my chart. "Well, Mr. Other, it's good to see you're awake. How are you feeling?" he asked. "Alive. Didn't expect to be," I replied. The doctor frowned, and Luna mirrored his expression. "Let's focus on keeping you that way," he said, downplaying my comment. He checked my stitches and vital signs while Luna watched, gasping at the sight of my wounds. The doctor explained, "I need you to take it easy due to the blood loss and the effects of the stomach pumping. I also mentioned that a detective wanted to speak with you." Once we were alone again, I asked Luna, "Are you here because of my letter?" She shook her head. "No, I haven't seen it. Detective Caldwell told me about it," she replied, her voice trembling. "My cousin works here and called me when you were admitted after your suicide attempt." I couldn't bring myself to meet her gaze, drowning in a sea of shame. Luna pressed on. "I was still angry when I left, but deep down, I knew you couldn't have been responsible. We've been colleagues for years. When I heard what happened, it became clear you were set up. I'm so sorry, Bart." Her voice cracked as she cried, resting her head on my chest, tears soaking through my gown. Minutes later, she rose, dabbing her face with a tissue. As she attempted to withdraw her hand from mine, I held onto it tightly. She softly wiped away my tears and managed a fragile smile. "I've given it a lot of thought and it just doesn't add up. You've always been passionate about your work, but when Henry presented those documents, I became furious," she explained, watching me tense at the mention of Henry's name. "It was him, wasn't it? Henry orchestrated this against you." I nodded slowly. "I believe so. I can't prove it, but the evidence points that way. He never alerted us to the budget overruns, and there are signed documents I've never seen before. Plus, I suspect he's been involved with Samantha." Taking a deep breath, eyes closed, I clung to Luna's hand.
"I'm sorry, Luna."
"I never imagined Henry and Samantha would drag you into this mess. I couldn't prove my innocence, which led me to make desperate choices." Silence enveloped us until a new voice interrupted our conversation. "You're right. You can't substantiate your claims. They did an excellent job framing you, but true criminals don't operate like this." A tall, muscular man entered the room, exuding authority and confidence. "Mr. Other, I'm Detective Ethan Caldwell. Along with your neighbor, Mrs. Sullivan, we found you. Glad to see you're recovering." I offered a bitter shrug. "Thanks, but I'm sure you'll have me arrested once I'm released." Detective Caldwell chuckled lightly. "Hold on to that thought." Luna and I exchanged glances as he ran his hand through his hair. "I've been assigned to your case, and there are inconsistencies that need addressing. Would you be willing to be interviewed again?" "Yeah, I suppose so. I have nothing left to lose," I replied, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Luna suddenly interjected, "What about a lawyer? Shouldn't you have one?" The detective sighed. "Yes, having legal representation is advisable." Luna nodded firmly. "I'll handle it." She left the room to make a call, leaving Detective Caldwell and me alone. Detective Caldwell observed, "She cares about you deeply, Mr. Other. It's important to have support right now." I reminded him sternly, "I'm the one you're investigating." He smiled wryly. "True, but I believe there's more to this case than meets the eye." "You do believe you're innocent, don't you?" "Absolutely. I would never steal from a company I was dedicated to," I replied, showing him my bandaged wrists as evidence of my ordeal. Just then, Luna returned. "My cousin, Avery Thompson, will be representing you," she announced. Detective Caldwell nodded approvingly. "I know Avery. She's an excellent lawyer." Have her reach out to me as soon as possible. We conversed for a few more minutes before the detective took his leave. That was strange, I remarked, breaking the silence. Yeah, the police usually aren't this approachable. Luna agreed, her concern evident. We sat quietly for a moment before I asked, "Who's taking care of Nora? Is my mom handling her?" Luna handed me a drawing from Nora. A cheerful hospital scene with a get-well-soon message. It moved me to tears. "Thank you," I said softly. "Have you heard from Bella?" She shook her head sorrowfully. "I've tried calling, but she's not responding." We continued our quiet conversation until Avery arrived. After brief introductions, Luna stepped out, leaving Avery and me alone. Avery, much like Luna, was striking with her sandy brown hair and warm demeanor, clearly her relative. "She really likes you, you know," Avery remarked, echoing what the detective had said. I snorted. "We've been working together for years." Avery smirked knowingly. "Men can be oblivious." I managed a hollow laugh. "I think my ex-wife is proof of that." Avery offered a sympathetic smile. "Don't worry. I've spoken with Detective Caldwell, and it appears he's leaning towards your side. I have some theories about what's happening, and I'll take charge of your case. Your only mistake was trusting the wrong people." She then inquired, "What are you seeking in the divorce?" My expression darkened. "I want as much as I can get." Avery comprehended my frustration. "Samantha and Henry set you up, possibly embezzled from the company, and left you to take the fall. You have every right to pursue them relentlessly. Don't hold back." Feeling a glimmer of hope with my new attorney, Avery, I appreciated her dedication. She spent time understanding the events leading up to my suicide attempt, reassuring me that things would improve. She promised to contact me for a formal police interview once I was released. The ensuing days were agonizingly slow. I remained in the hospital with doctors and nurses regularly checking on me. Without my phone, I couldn't reach out to anyone, and I doubted anyone wanted to hear from me anyway. However, Luna visited the next day, bringing me a paperback of Demon In by Dan Simmons, which brought a rare smile to my face. It was a book I had cherished years ago. As Luna sat beside me, engrossed in her copy of Pride and Prejudice, she looked up and said, "I'm here to take care of you." We chatted quietly, and during lunch, she brought me roast beef with chips and a chicken wrap for herself. Despite the lingering pain in my wrists, I began to feel a semblance of normalcy returning. Later, Luna returned just as the doctors were removing my four, informing me that I'd be discharged the next morning if my blood tests were clear. I expressed my uncertainty. "I don't know where to go. I don't have a phone or wallet to secure a hotel, and I can't go back home." Luna smiled reassuringly. "Avery obtained a court order to access your belongings. I've brought your phone, wallet, clothes, laptop, iPad, and shaving supplies." I was taken aback by her generosity. "Thank you. Now I can at least find a place to stay." But I noticed the worry etched on her face. "What's wrong?" I asked. "You were right about Henry and Samantha?" She responded quietly. "When Avery, the officer, and I went to retrieve your things, they were living together. They weren't expecting visitors." I sighed. "I'm sorry you had to witness that." "What happened?" she asked, a slight smile playing on her lips. "They shouted at me to leave until the officer intervened, warning them they'd be arrested for violating a court order. Then I managed to collect your things." Tears welled in her eyes as she recalled the scene. "Please, don't ever do that again." "I promise," I replied, raising my bandaged hands in a gesture of sincerity. The next day, freshly dressed, Luna met me as I was discharged. We walked together to her car, and she drove me to a condo complex in Kings Park. "Luna, why are we here? Can I stay at your place?" I inquired. She chuckled softly. "Of course you can't stay permanently, but you don't need to spend money on a hotel. You can stay in my guest room for a few days. Avery is meeting us this afternoon to discuss your case," she added. I had visited Luna's home before, a warm, two-story house she shared with her daughter, Nora. It was a comforting place amidst the chaos of my life. After settling in, Avery arrived, carrying a stack of legal documents and wearing a serious expression. "Bart, you're a very fortunate man," she began, her tone professional yet compassionate. She broke down the details, explaining that Henry and Samantha had nearly escaped unscathed, but their scheme had fallen apart. My financial accounts had been frozen, including one they had fraudulently opened in my name. Avery had secured video footage of them setting up the account and was actively pursuing legal action for fraud and emotional abuse. She assured me that justice was imminent and they would soon face the consequences. Avery also informed us that she had filed a lawsuit against my previous employer for wrongful termination. She anticipated that everything would be settled by week's end and had scheduled a formal interview with Detective Caldwell for the following day, urging me to adhere to her guidance. She was confident that both my wife and Henry would be apprehended shortly. Over the next hour, we meticulously reviewed details and signed necessary documents. Avery promised that all charges against me would be dismissed. The following day, after Avery departed, I unpacked my clothes and toiletries, feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty. In the afternoon, Luna and I discussed potential next steps. When Luna left to pick up Nora from school, I turned on my phone for the first time in days. I saw numerous missed calls and texts, predominantly from Samantha taunting me to sign the divorce papers before facing jail time. Interestingly, there were also several missed calls from my former workplace urging me to reach out, but no messages from Bella. When Luna and Nora returned, Nora was bursting with energy, eagerly sharing stories about her day. I cherished the moments spent with her, helping with homework and reading together. Her innocent joy reminded me so much of Luna, providing a much-needed respite from my anxieties. We enjoyed dinner and watched television, and before bed, Nora asked me to tuck her in, giving me a heartfelt hug that nearly moved me to tears. Her genuine affection starkly contrasted the pain of Bella's rejection. Later that evening, Luna and I sat together on the couch, holding hands and embracing. She comforted me, assuring me that everything would be all right. The next day, following the interview with Detective Caldwell and Avery's efforts, all charges against me were dropped. That evening, the news announced that Samantha and Henry had active warrants for fraud and identity theft, though they remained at large. Later that night, Bella called for the first time since everything unraveled, but I let it go to voicemail, not ready to face her. The next day, she called and texted repeatedly, insisting I return her calls, but I wasn't prepared. Her sudden concern felt hollow, likely influenced by her mother's perspective and Henry's manipulations. I was furious that she had abandoned me so swiftly and only reached out now. That night, I was plagued by a nightmare about the night I attempted to harm myself. In the dream, Samantha and Henry taunted me, joined by Luna, Bella, and Mike, leaving me to perish alone. I jolted awake, screaming and drenched in sweat. Luna rushed to my side, with Nora standing in the doorway, crying. I buried my face in my hands, sobbing, "I'm sorry. I can't do this," trying to regain composure. Luna and Nora climbed onto the bed with me, comforting me. "It's all right, Uncle Bart. You just had a bad dream. Mom and I are here for you," they reassured. Sleep eluded me after that. Eventually, Nora drifted off beside me, her hand resting on my stomach, while Luna watched me with deep concern. "Are you okay, Bart?" she asked gently, holding me close. I hesitated for a moment. "No, I'm not okay. It was a dream about that night." I couldn't finish, but Luna understood. She kissed my cheek and nestled into my neck. "What are we going to do, Bart?" she whispered, her voice tinged with pain. I hugged her and Nora tightly. "We'll figure it out. It'll be okay." In that moment, Luna's unwavering support made me feel more like myself than I had since that tragic night. I held them both until dawn, sensing a flicker of hope for the first time in days. The next morning, after breakfast, Luna took Nora to school while I began searching for a counselor. I knew I needed professional help. By the time Luna returned, I had already made several calls. She smiled at me before her expression turned serious. "Bart, can we talk?" she asked, leading me to the couch. I nodded, sensing the gravity of the conversation ahead. It's okay, Luna. I realized last night was terrifying with Nora here. It's not healthy if I'm waking up screaming. I need to find somewhere else to stay. Her eyes widened in alarm as she quickly grabbed my hands, looking panicked. No, Bart, that's not what I wanted to talk about. It's actually the opposite. She took a deep breath. Bartley, I'm in love with you, Luna confessed, her words tumbling out almost in a rush. Excuse me, I replied, utterly stunned. I'm in love with you and have been for a long time, she reiterated more softly, blushing. She searched my face for a reaction. When I heard you were in the hospital, I went crazy with worry. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you without telling you how I felt. I was left speechless as she continued. I tried to keep it to myself, but seeing you hurt last night broke my heart. I had to tell you. Haven't you noticed I don't go on dates? She asked. Yes, I responded, puzzled. But I assumed it was because of Nora. That's partly true, she admitted. But it's also because no one else measures up to you. She explained how she had admired me from the moment we started working together. You treated me with respect, supported me, and made Nora feel special. You've been like a father figure to her, Luna said. When everything fell apart last week, you handled it with Bella. You didn't lash out, even when I did. She blushed, recalling the moment she had slapped me. You're an amazing man, Bart. I love you for so many reasons. If Samantha was foolish enough to throw you away, I'm here to pick you up. She leaned in and kissed me, and time seemed to stand still. Will you take me, Bart? Will you make me your woman? Luna asked. I was taken aback. While I had always admired her, this sudden confession was overwhelming. I knew things with Samantha were over, and Luna's love made me feel less like a failure. But I also feared it might complicate things further. Luna seemed to sense my hesitation but remained silent, simply taking my hand and leading me to her bedroom. Later, we fell asleep together. I dreamed again of the night I tried to harm myself, but this time Luna appeared, healed my wounds and flew away, leaving behind a scene of anxiety and sorrow. We awoke to the sound of the alarm. I shuddered but didn't scream. As we got dressed, I shared the details of the dream with Luna, and she looked deeply concerned. She took me with her when she went to pick up Nora from school. A few more weeks passed, and both Henry and Samantha were apprehended while attempting to flee the country. In a panic, they tried to escape from Perth to Adelaide, where customs officials caught them. It took 2 months to bring them back to Perth, but during that time, my relationship with Luna blossomed. I moved into her home, now our home, and felt youthful and hopeful once more. It was clear that I had fallen in love with her. When Henry and Samantha were finally brought back to Perth, I realized how right Luna had been. My thoughts of Samantha had nearly vanished. A month later, Luna, Avery, and I testified in court against Samantha and Henry. During the trial, Henry avoided my gaze and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Samantha, however, kept her eyes locked on me throughout the proceedings. It was unveiled that Henry had masterminded the entire plot, seduced Samantha, and orchestrated the fraud. Samantha was sentenced to 20 years as an accessory, with an additional 5 years for mental cruelty based on evidence from the hidden cameras she had set up for Henry. After the verdict, the judge granted our divorce. Avery pointed out that we had divided our savings and agreed to sell the house, with the proceeds being split immediately. I also consented, after much persuasion from Avery, to act as trustee for Samantha's funds until she began serving her sentence. I wasn't permitted to use her funds but could invest them. The court ordered Henry and Samantha to commence their prison terms immediately. Samantha's lawyer requested that I spend an hour with her before she was escorted to jail. After some hesitation, I consented. In the interrogation room, Samantha appeared defeated. Her shoulders slumped. Unlike her demeanor in the courtroom, she avoided my gaze. After a few moments of uneasy silence, she softly said, "I'm sorry, Bartley." Her apology took me by surprise. "Are you, Samantha?" I responded, allowing a hint of bitterness to seep through. Tears welled up in her eyes as she met my gaze. "Yes, Bart, I'm sorry." I wanted to reject her apology, but she insisted on continuing. I motioned for her to go on. "Thank you," she began, looking me directly in the eye. "Believe it or not, Bart, I'm truly sorry. I don't know what came over me. I loved you and still do, despite everything I did. One day, I woke up feeling this inexplicable sense of loss." She glanced down at her hands before continuing. "A few weeks after that initial feeling, everything started to spiral out of control. I became angry with you because you still loved me, even though I didn't feel the same way. Henry noticed my distress and began to manipulate me. It took about a month before the affair started. He exploited my insecurities, got me into bed, and then used my guilt to execute his plan. You might not have known, but Henry was always jealous of you, your leadership, your success. He convinced me to open a bank account in your name to make it appear as though you were embezzling funds. We both knew you were trusted, and by the time everything fell apart, Henry had already planned for us to flee with the money. We thought we'd be out of reach if anyone caught us. Meanwhile, you didn't care that you were destroying me," I retorted, struggling to keep my anger in check. She nodded sorrowfully. "At first, I didn't want to, but Henry systematically broke me down. For the plan to work, you had to be completely shattered." "You almost succeeded," I replied. "If it weren't for Detective Caldwell and Luna, you might have." We sat in silence until Samantha finally asked, "Can I see them?" Understanding her request, I placed my scarred hands on the table. She gasped and reached for them but hesitated, tears streaming down her face. Inside, I was overwhelmed with a mix of emotions: rage, shame, and surprisingly, a lingering trace of love for her. Samantha seemed to sense my turmoil, staring intensely at me. "I'm really sorry, Bart. I'm ashamed of what I did. I'm going to serve my 20 years without appeal. I deserve it." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief that she would face her punishment. She looked up again, her eyes filled with regret. "Bart, just so you know, you were never a bad lover. You were so much better than Henry. He was selfish in bed, unlike you. I have no excuse for how I treated you that last morning." We fell silent for a moment before she asked, "You and Luna?" "Yeah," I replied, feeling a bit uncertain. She offered a weak smile. "Good. She's loved you for years, you know. I just found out recently," I admitted. With a mix of passion and pain in her voice, she continued, "May she love you and heal the pain I caused. She'll never betray you like I did. She's everything I'm not." "Bart, I began, but hesitated, unsure of what to say. "Don't worry," she said, wiping my tears with her sleeve. "I agreed to your terms. I was surprised by how generous you were, even after everything." I sighed deeply. "Samantha, I once loved you more than you realized. If you had talked to me about your feelings, maybe we could have avoided all this. But I'm trying to move past what you did. I still hold a lot of anger inside. I want to scream at you, strangle you for what you said, but I can't. I chose to end my life, and I have to live with that." We remained quiet for a moment before Samantha spoke again.
I'm sorry, Bart.
"You deserve better than what I gave you. I share the guilt for pushing you too far. I'll always be ashamed. I saw the letter you wrote, and you were right. I will burn for what I did. But I thank God you're still alive." Anger flared in my eyes as Samantha took responsibility for her actions. She bowed her head in shame, fully aware of how she had destroyed my relationship with our daughter. "If it's any consolation," Samantha said sadly, "Bella has cut me off too. She's angry and scared, and I can't fix it. She feels guilty about how she treated you, and the fact that you're not talking to her makes it worse." Samantha paused before continuing, "Bart, I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything, but could you find it in you to forgive Bella? She needs at least one parent. I realize now that even if I wasn't in prison, the guilt of what I did would have destroyed me. Please, Bart, take care of our daughter," Samantha pleaded. I took a deep breath, struggling to find the right words. "What you're asking is hard. You hurt me deeply, but when Bella told me I was dead to her, that hurt more than anything you did. I want to reconnect with her, but the pain of what she and you did, I don't know how to get past it." Samantha nodded, understanding the depth of my struggle. I get it, she said sadly, knowing I was trying but still had a long way to go. Look, Samantha, I'm trying not to hate you. I'm getting professional help, but it's hard not to yell and curse at you. As for Bella, I'll consider talking to her, but I can't promise anything. Samantha seemed to age before my eyes during this conversation. She stood up and said, Bart, I know it means little now, but I'm sorry for what I did. I have no excuses, and I know I can never make up for it. I'll serve my time and hope that one day you might forgive me. She looked up at me, her face lined with wrinkles. You may not believe me, but I still love you. I lost sight of that for a while, but I always will. We stood in awkward silence as tears streamed down Samantha's face. She knocked on the door, and her prison escort opened it. Before leaving, she glanced back at me. Love, Luna. Bart, give her the love I foolishly threw away. Live a beautiful life and hold your head high. Remember, there are people who care about you. Even in my darkest times, I lost sight of that, but I'm proud of you. You're becoming yourself again. Goodbye, my beautiful man. I'll never forget you, Samantha said as she walked out. I reflected on our conversation. There was no shouting. Samantha had accepted responsibility and her prison sentence. As I left the room, I noticed a trail of tears on the floor where Samantha had walked. I paused, mourning what once was, then turned and walked away. My spirits lifted when I saw Luna waiting for me in the public gallery, looking beautiful even on such a solemn day. Did everything go smoothly? She inquired. Yes, I responded. It was unexpected. I was bracing for excuses, but she took on most of the responsibility and genuinely expressed remorse. What are your thoughts on that?
Luna question.
I still harbor a lot of anger towards both Henry and her, but unlike Henry, I also feel sorry for her. She understands she destroyed everything, and now she's facing the consequences. Bella has also severed ties with her, I explained. Luna nodded thoughtfully, then paused. Mike and Bella are here. Mike, I echoed. They'd be at the cafe across the street if you'd like to speak with them. It seems they had a major argument about how Bella treated you, but she's really eager to see you, she informed me. I took a deep breath. You believe I should talk to her, don't you? Luna nodded again. Absolutely, my love. There's a hurt deep inside you that only Bella can help heal. I'll be with you the entire time, and if necessary, I'll protect you fiercely. I love you, Bart, I said, leaning in to kiss her. I love you too, Luna. It was the first time I openly declared my love for her in public, and I didn't mind who saw. Luna was the only one that mattered. Let's go, I suggested, and we walked hand in hand to the cafe. Upon entering, we saw Bella and Mike. Bella looked conflicted, torn between fleeing and embracing me. I opened my arms, and she held onto me tightly, tears streaming down her face as she repeatedly whispered, I'm sorry, Daddy. I glanced at Luna, who gave a reassuring smile, and at Mike, who seemed uncertain about how to proceed. After a few moments, I gently released Bella. Let's all sit down, I said softly. I just spoke with your mom. Bella nodded. I heard, Dad. I'm sorry. I raised my hand to stop her. I understand, Gracie. Your mom explained a lot, but your words really hurt me. I felt abandoned by someone I always thought would care about me. What hurt the most was that you didn't even consider if I was innocent.
Bella blushed, embarrassed.
Dad, She stood firmer. No, I need to say this. I should have given you a chance to explain, but I didn't. I can't blame Mom or Henry, but they convinced me you were guilty, that you were going to jail, that you were having an affair. She looked over at Luna. By the time you called, I was so upset that I said things I regret. Mike added, that's what led to many of our arguments when Luna left messages about you being in the hospital. I thought Mom and Henry were making it seem like you were just seeking attention and that Luna was part of your plan. Bella turned to look at Luna, then back at me. They said you just wanted attention, but it's true, Dad. You were trying to. She couldn't finish her sentence, and none of us could. I nodded, took a deep breath, and showed Bella my scars.
I'm sorry, grazie.
I was at my lowest and couldn't see a way out. I got drunk and made a terrible mistake, I said slowly. It was difficult to speak, but I needed her to understand the impact of her words. Bella began to sob, burying her face in her hands, while Luna held me close as our emotions threatened to overwhelm us. After a few moments of silence, Mike spoke up, trying to lighten the mood. I know this is serious, but can I hope that something good came out of all this? He asked, gesturing towards Luna and me. Bella looked up, her eyes widening. Daddy, you and Luna. Yes, I interrupted, feeling the need to clarify. But it wasn't an affair like your mother said. I never cheated. When I woke up in the hospital, Luna wouldn't leave my side, even though she believed what Henry and your mother told her. For a while, we reconciled, and I realized how much she loves me. Luna blushed, wrapping her arms around me and giving me a quick kiss. Mike smiled, and Bella, after a moment, regained her composure. Thank you, she said to Luna. Thank you for being there for my dad. Luna laughed, which eased the tension, and we spent the next few hours talking and sharing our experiences. At one point, Bella switched seats with Luna to give me a hug. While that meeting didn't resolve everything, it was a start. It took months for Bella and me to rebuild our relationship, and we attended counseling together to work through trust issues and other challenges. One difficult session involved me asking Bella not to completely cut her mother out of her life. Despite everything, Samantha was still her mother, and she was suffering because of her actions. Bella agreed to visit Samantha, but only if I accompanied her. The first meeting was tough, and we didn't discuss it much afterward, but Bella made an effort. A week later, Samantha sent me a letter thanking me for convincing her. 6 months later, once things had settled, I proposed to Luna during a family dinner. Nora and Bella felt it was long overdue, and Mike shook my hand, telling me to take care of her, echoing my own words back to me. Shortly after, Bella and Mike got married with my blessing. Luna visited Samantha in jail and asked if she could take over as the mother of the bride. Samantha, in tears, agreed. Nora served as the flower girl, proudly calling herself my second daughter. From that moment, I was no longer Uncle Bart but Dad. Walking Bella down the aisle, I felt the last remnants of our strained relationship dissolve. Later, Bella sent photos and a letter to Samantha, thanking her for allowing Luna to step in. I hear Samantha keeps those on the wall in her cell. Meanwhile, as the legal matters with Henry and Samantha were being resolved, Avery worked tirelessly to secure a substantial settlement for Luna and me. At first, Oliver was hesitant, but just before the trial, he proposed an offer that Avery deemed too low and turned down. In the end, we managed to obtain a high 6-figure amount for Luna and a 7-figure sum for myself. Although the settlement was modest compared to the potential fallout of a public trial, it compelled Oliver to retire and sell his company for significantly less than its true value. With the settlement funds, Luna and I launched our own engineering consulting business, providing both administrative and engineering services. Within half a year, our team had grown to 5 employees, handling large-scale projects nationwide. One of our earliest clients was Lucas Hartman, who invited us to dinner to apologize. He acknowledged that we had been wronged and admitted that the project had nearly failed without my engineering expertise. Since then, we've been welcomed to all major Hartman events, whether we're actively involved in their projects or not. Lucas turned out to be a good-hearted man, caught in a difficult situation and eager to make things right. We decided to sell Luna's small house and purchase a much larger one with a breathtaking view of Kings Park. The old 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house required extensive restoration, and we spent 2 years renovating it, only taking breaks for family holidays, a wedding, and the birth of Bella and Nora's little brother, Sebastian. Life was getting better, although I still experienced occasional nightmares. With Luna always by my side, more than a decade later, Sebastian turned 10 and was preparing to attend university to study law, just like Aunt Avery. One relaxed Saturday, Bella and Mike joined us on our front terrace overlooking Kings Park. Sebastian was busy playing Xbox with my 7-year-old grandson, Alexander, while my 5-year-old granddaughter, Alexander, tried to join in. Bella brought up her mother. Dad, I received a letter from Mom this week, she said carefully. Even though Samantha wasn't a forbidden topic, everyone was cautious when mentioning her. Over the years, I had received several letters from Samantha and even visited her a few times. I knew she was undergoing treatment and respected in prison, despite having 8 years left on her sentence. What did she say? I inquired. Among other things, she mentioned that Henry was released last month, Bella replied. I quietly took a sip of my drink, feeling Luna's hand gently squeeze mine. Did she mention anything else? Luna asked. Bella nodded. Yes, she said Henry came to see her. He didn't look well, and their conversation wasn't exactly peaceful. I planned to visit her next week to find out more. We briefly discussed the news before I decided to call Ethan Caldwell, now a close friend and head of the Major Crimes team. Bart, how are you? How's Luna? Ethan greeted me warmly. I responded, we're doing well, but I just learned that Henry has been released. Ethan's tone turned serious. Yes, I received the report yesterday. I plan to tell you more when we go bowling next week. He's relocating to Adelaide for a new job and told his probation officer that he wishes you'd rot in hell for ruining his life. He's been having a tough time, though, and I don't think he'll cause any issues. Thanks, Ethan. That was my main concern. If I hear anything, I'll keep you informed, I replied. We chatted briefly about bowling at an upcoming barbecue. Before I returned to the table, Luna asked Ethan, and I nodded in understanding. He confirmed that Henry had left and was moving to Adelaide, but he still harbored hatred towards me, and I felt the same way. I shared the news with my family, and the rest of the day was quiet, but my family made sure I felt supported. That night, I was jolted awake by my first nightmare in years. In the dream, Henry threatened my family, forcing me to use a razor again. Luna woke up immediately, trying to soothe me. Without a second thought, she called my therapist, who kindly took our call at 2 a.m. I explained the nightmare while Luna cried beside me. Talking about it helped, and my therapist suggested that Henry's release and my lingering anxiety had triggered the dream. We scheduled a follow-up session for later. Luna checked on Sebastian, who was still asleep until he woke up. When he went back to bed after hearing our conversation, I lay back down, and Luna cuddled close. Do you think Henry will be a problem? She asked with concern. I don't think so. I believe he'll disappear, and we won't hear from him again. And even if he does, we're prepared, I assured her, subtly referencing the hunting gear we had safely stored away.
Luna nodded.
I'm sorry this news upset you. Are you okay? Sort of. I admitted. There will always be shadows from those days, but I focus on the good things now. I'm grateful for you, the woman who saved my life. Luna looked at me earnestly. I love you, Bart. I love you too, Luna, I responded. We drifted off to sleep, and although life wasn't perfect, we enjoyed more good days than bad. There were still arguments, nightmares, and challenges. But I knew I had the unwavering love of a woman who made everything possible, friends who accepted me, and a family that stood by me through life's storms.